Good evening. Although Scotland avoided the worst of England's weather problems, rail commuters suffered their own misery. Scotland's busiest rail line experienced huge disruption after a landslide on the Glasgow to Edinburgh line caused cancellations and long delays. The landslide near Polmont Station closed one track completely and may take until Saturday to make safe. To make matters worse, the storms south of the border also caused the partial closure of the East Coast main line.
The Saturday night storms, which lashed Scotland with heavy rain, led to flooding on the line at Polmont early yesterday morning, and a 30-foot landslide in the track bed followed soon after. Railtrack blame a fast-flowing burn that narrows to get through a culvert under the line. But it wasn't till thousands of rush hour commuters headed for their usual train this morning that the havoc wreaked by the weekend weather really started to bite.
2 hours have been waiting a bit. Falkirk High, taken to Falkirk Grimston, went to Larbert, been back and forward. We've been on the train for 2 hours.
I feel that the landslide in Polmont, that couldn't be helped, but normally the trains, it's bad management, and I think they should do more to appease the situation.
I mean, I'm not blaming them for what's happened today. We had to travel in this morning by bus from Falkirk, and if you think the trains are slow, the buses are even worse.
Contractors cut away trees to drive a service road nearer the landslide. Stones will now be put in a bid to make the site safe. Yesterday, ScotRail had waited hopefully for engineering work to lead to the line being reopened last night, but it didn't happen. And at 6:30 in the evening, once again apparently late in the day, Railtrack gave ScotRail the bad news that an emergency timetable would have to come in. There were extra services this morning from Edinburgh to Central Station in Glasgow, which ran again in tonight's rush hour. On the Dunblane-Edinburgh line, some passengers had to take buses to get to their destination. ScotRail admitted they weren't coping well with this latest track problem. East Coast mainline operator GNER say it'll be the middle of November before their services can get back to normal. Trains between Scotland and London on the East Coast route have been off all day and will remain so tonight.
The First Minister, Henry McLeish, added to Railtrack's discomfiture by describing their emergency maintenance programme as a farce. ScotRail say they can hold out little prospect of commuters facing an easier journey tomorrow morning. Even working 24 hours a day, they say the Polmont landslide will take days to make safe, and that will continue to have a knock-on effect on several other routes in central Scotland. It's expected that Edinburgh-Glasgow services will again run only once an hour tomorrow, and trains out of Dunblane and Linlithgow will still be badly affected. Meanwhile, traffic's moving again in both directions on the M9 after several hours of delays and diversions when a truck with a heavy load hit a bridge. Cars heading north were diverted around Stirling through Bannockburn and Bridge of Allen, with delays reported of an hour and a half. The northbound section of the M9 between Junction 9 and the Keir roundabout will remain closed for several weeks, but a contraflow is now in place on the southbound carriageway. Other news now, the First Minister, Henry McLeish, has denied suggestions that Scotland's public spending budget could be under attack. He told BBC Scotland that there were absolutely no plans to review the Barnett formula, which governs Scotland's cash settlement. And he stressed that his reshuffled ministerial team would be judged by results. It looks as if the medical world is making significant progress in the fight against superbugs, the deadly infections that are picked up by patients in hospitals and are resistant to nearly all antibiotics. A team of scientists in Edinburgh have found that for the first time, the levels of resistance have stopped rising. It's hoped this means that in future, doctors will be able to offer treatment.
It's in laboratories like this one that infections are put to the test. Bacteria are grown and then mixed with different antibiotics. Those which show resistance are deemed superbugs. They claim 5,000 lives in the UK every year and affect 100,000 people. Yet a team of scientists in Edinburgh believe hospitals are starting to win the superbug war.
The most sophisticated of the antibiotics that we have available to us are not showing increases in resistance in the United Kingdom over the 3 years of the study.
In layman's terms, exactly what does that mean?
That means that if you go into hospital now, you are no more likely than you were 3 years ago to meet a resistant organism.
Intensive care units, oncology and children's wards are all areas in hospitals which are vulnerable to superbugs. Over the past 3 years, samples have been taken from nearly every hospital in Scotland and tested as part of a global 5-year surveillance programme.
When we've isolated them, we go on and we're looking at, let's say, a range of antibiotics at various concentrations so that we can pick out resistant organisms, or to really see if the organism maintain still sensitive and could be used for therapeutic use, or some of them may have become resistant.
Although the superbugs are far from disappearing, the very fact they're becoming weaker is delighting the medical world, which over the last 10 years has spent more than £1 billion every year fighting the bacteria. Samantha Poling, reporting Scotland.
The world-famous Burrell collection in Glasgow is under review by the City Council amid fears that it could contain stolen art. Some of the collection's most famous works were bought in the 1930s, in the years leading up to the Second World War, and the Council is afraid that some of these could have been stolen from Jewish families.
Shipping magnate Sir William Burrell was one of the world's greatest art collectors, but some of his most famous works by Cézanne, Degas and Rembrandt were bought in the lead-up to World War II. And that's a worry for Glasgow museums. They fear some of the collection may have been stolen from Jewish families in Nazi Germany.
Sir William Burrell collected extensively in Europe, and it may well be that he bought from dealers who were far less scrupulous than he himself was.
There are currently 110,000 works of art still unaccounted for, and most of them will never be reunited with their original owners. But Glasgow museums hope that by raising their own doubts, they'll lift the shadow that has fallen over their best-known collection. Pauline McLean, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Now back to London.